So, hello everyone, and good evening. And thank you so much for tuning in. I am Tamika Walker Kelly, your favorite music teacher and president of the North Carolina Association of Educators, NCAE. It is time for another episode of Tuesdays with Tamika. And so, today, my guest is State Senator Wiley Nickel, NCAE Endorsed Candidate for the North Carolina 13th Congressional District. So I'm going to bring him up to the screen now so he can say hello to the people. So Senator Nichols, say hello to the audience today.
Hello, it's so great to be with you, Tamika. Thank you so much. I'm always so glad to stand with teachers in the legislature.
Awesome. Well, Senator Nickel, it is a pleasure to have you on with us this evening. And I wanted you to join me today because you are, as you said, a advocate for educators and public education. You have a long time commitment to public education. And not only that, but with NCAE and Wake NCAE, shout out Wake NCAE. So can you tell us a little bit about your background? And then for NCAE members and all of the educators who are watching who might not be familiar with how you've worked with NCAE in the past, can you talk about how you've worked to support educators?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Wiley Nickel. I'm a state senator, my second term. I represent Cary and Raleigh in the Senate. I'm an attorney, a small business owner, a husband, a father, and a former White House staffer for President Obama. I worked for him during some of his toughest fights to expand access to affordable health care. And we are so close to finally getting Medicaid expansion, which I know is a major priority for NCAE. We passed a bipartisan bill through the Senate. That's something I want to bring up at the top. But excited to talk about public education. North Carolina, as you know, is not doing nearly enough to make long overdue and needed investments in public education. We got to give our educators the respect they deserve, and we haven't done a good enough job. I want to talk, though, about some of the bills that, they're like your kids. You love them all equally, that I've pushed and pushed. Number one, a bill to restore funding for the teacher assistant position, getting a guaranteed, funding for one TA in every classroom K through 3. We used to fund those positions, and we are doing less and less every year. So that's something that we got to invest in. I have a bill for that I pushed. Also, a nurse in every public school. That's an issue I've pushed. Here in Wake County, you have nurses who split their time between 3, maybe even 4 schools. So huge priority there for funding. And then just talking about the budget. I pushed back against a budget that didn't do enough for public schools and took the corporate tax rate down to 0. So profitable out-of-state corporations are set to pay 0% in the coming years because we slashed these corporate taxes. And if we just kept our corporate tax rate at 2.5%, which is the lowest in the South already, the next closest state is like at 5%. If we just kept it at 2.5% and used that money for public education, we could fund 2 years of universal pre-K for every child in North Carolina. That's what we're talking about with these cuts. We certainly do a lot of other things with that funding. But, I ran for the Senate in large part because of my experience with my law firm. We had a legal assistant who we loved. She was fantastic, but her husband was a teacher, and he got a job in Arkansas for $15,000 more a year. We've got to do better. So that's been a huge goal for me in the Senate.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with us and how you got to be into public service, working with President Obama, and then doing great work in filing legislation here for public education in North Carolina. We know, Senator Nickel, that the issues on the ballot in this November extend, like you said, far beyond public education. We're talking about healthcare, infrastructure, voting rights, and other issues that have a history of being used to undermine and destroy and even divide us around class and race. And so when you are elected, because we like to speak in success, when you are elected to represent us in the 13th Congressional District, can you share your 3 top priorities and how you'll continue to engage your constituents in the U.S. Congress?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Number one, Washington just is not working for North Carolina families. We've got to bring down costs. The cost of inflation is far too high. So that means bringing down the cost of healthcare, bringing down the cost of housing, um, and certainly bringing down the cost of childcare. The cost at the grocery store and the pump is far too high, and we have solutions. If folks visit WileyNickelForCongress.com, they can see our 30-point inflation action plan with all the things that I want to work on immediately to help bring down those costs. But in this election, democracy is on the ballot. The right to vote and the right to choose is on the ballot in a way that we've never seen. I want my daughter to have the same rights that my wife has had for her entire life, and the right to choose is on this ballot in a way that is incredibly important for women's rights. So those are the issues we're spending a lot of time talking about. And the good news is in this race, it's a 50-50 seat. It was a seat we fought to get, and the courts gerrymandered this district for competition to make it an even right down the middle kind of district. So, the folks, who encourage others to vote, who vote in District 13, which is Wake, Johnston, Harnett, and Wayne, can have an outsized influence in making sure that we send a pro-education candidate to Washington.
Well, thank you for pointing out which counties belong in the 13th Congressional District. And it is true that education touches all of those issues, from voting rights to healthcare to women's rights, particularly as education is a largely woman-based field, right? So thank you for acknowledging that as well. So as you know, we are right now in smack dab in voting season, as lots of voting has already started by absentee ballot, by voting by mail. And so I have a question that I ask all my guests when they come on Tuesdays with Tamika, and it is probably the most important one, as we are only 30 some days from election day, only just really short. What is your voting plan, Senator Nickel?
It's the same one that we do all the time. My wife and I have our neighbor, her 92-year-old grandmother, Grandma Helen. We go and we vote with her. We take her to vote. So, I think that the message, at least for us, is, bring people with you to vote. That's the best way to make sure, we elect the right people. So, if you got 3 people you can count on, make sure they get out to vote and bring them with you. Bring folks to the polls with you. That's what we do. And we have a great routine with Grandma Helen on election day.
That is so sweet, to bring Grandma Helen and to go vote together as a family. I've heard that from lots of people. And plus, we're always excited to get those cool, I voted stickers and stuff like that. But for the people watching, if you are new to Tuesdays with Tamika, I'm going to ask you, what is your voting plan? So, whichever route you choose, whichever way you choose to vote, we want you to know all of your choices when it's time to cast your vote and use your voice in this election. So, we've heard that voting by mail has already started. Early voting, it starts on October 20th, or you can wait and vote on election day, which is November the 8th. And very soon, I told y'all this just last week, very soon you'll be able to visit our website to see all of the pro public education endorsements, which include Senator Wiley Nickel, before you cast your ballot. So, Senator, the time moves really fast, and we are finished for today. But I do want to say thank you for being on with us today. Is there any last things that you want to say to the people watching this evening?
No, I'm just so grateful for the support of educators in North Carolina. I had your back in the state Senate. I'm going to fight and do everything I can to make those needed investments and give our educators the respect they deserve out of Washington. So just grateful for the support, and I hope I get to see you on the campaign trail too, Tamika. So just really appreciate, the time to spend with you and so many other folks today.
Absolutely. You will definitely see me out on the campaign trail working for our pro public education endorsed candidates, as long as lots of educators, retirees, our college students, our ESPs, all out getting the word out, especially with our Apple cards, all that stuff like that. And so thank you, Senator Nickel, who is our NCAE endorsed candidate for North Carolina's 13th Congressional District. I want you to remember
Got
that.
my Apple Card here.
That's right, for his time today. And I want to thank you all for tuning in with Tuesdays with Tamika today. As you know, since we are in election season, Tuesdays with Tamika season 3 is up and running. So all you have to do is mark your calendars for 6 o'clock p.m. every Tuesday so you can tune into the next episode of Tuesdays with Tamika. So we will see you all next Tuesday and have a great evening. Bye.